The Empire Strikes Back is directed by Irving Kershner and stars Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher and Billy Dee Williams. This is the next chapter in the Star Wars saga following Episode 4 A New Hope. After the rebels are overpowered by the Empire on their newly established base, Luke Skywalker begins Jedi training with Yoda. His friends accept shelter from a questionable ally as Darth Vader hunts them in a plan to capture Luke Skywalker. This movie, just like the first Star Wars film, was a phenomenon, but for a completely different reason. While the first one was a film that nobody saw coming and took the world by storm, this was the first time in Hollywood history where a film was being extremely hyped up before its release and people were trying to find out all the little tidbits that they could about the film before it was actually released. And this was something that had never been seen before, but Star Wars had such an effect on people that this is what it caused people to do. The first and most obvious thing you'll probably notice about this film is that the tone is a lot darker than what we saw in Episode 4. The tone in The Empire Strikes Back is a lot darker and a lot more serious, and you can tell that the story is going to be a lot more serious this time around, and in that way as well, that the stakes are going to be a lot higher, which was something that Star Wars desperately needed to really up the tension for this second film, and that's exactly what they were able to deliver with The Empire Strikes Back. All of the cast, once again, are tremendous in all of their respective roles, ranging from Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, Carrie Fisher as Leia, and all the others in between. However, a special mention has to go to the new character of Lando Calrissian, played by the wonderful Billy Dee Williams, who is kind of like Han Solo's brother-in-arms. They've kind of had a history together, and he shows up in this film, and he's just a very cool character, very interesting character, and I really hope he shows up again at some point. Now, I don't need to spend too much time on the cast because if you want to see that, you can check out my review for Star Wars. However, one thing I do really want to mention is how this movie developed their relationships. In the first movie, this is the time all these characters met for the first time. But in this film, all of their relationships are developing and they are becoming more like friends for life, whereas in the first film they were just teammates. Here you really get to see Luke and Han gain a brother sort of relationship. Obviously Han and Leia begin their relationship and it's very natural. I have to really commend the writing for the relationship between Han and Leia. It is so natural and so well done, but also very snappy dialogue, including obviously the classic Nerf herder line, followed by the "who's scruffy looking" line by Han Solo. Very awesome dialogue, and it really makes this relationship believable, especially in the end when we have the amazing "I love you, I know" scene. It was such a good payoff to a build-up to a very well-established relationship between two of our favourite characters. Like I said earlier, the stakes in this film are a lot higher, and you can see that with how the action was doubled up. Ranging from the amazing Millennium Falcon asteroid belt chase to the amazing Walker assault on the planet of Hoth, you can see the action scenes are even better than they were in the first film, and they were incredible in A New Hope. But here in The Empire Strikes Back, they really up the ante, and each action scene feels exciting, it feels riveting, and you feel like you are in that moment with these characters. Speaking of Hoth, this movie had some amazingly ranged planets to visit. That was one of the biggest complaints with the first film, although we didn't know it at the time, is that it only really took place on Tatooine and then in space. I mean, yeah, we saw Yavin 4 slightly, but we really only got to see Tatooine and a spaceship. Here we get an amazingly deep snow planet called Hoth, and we also get an amazing planet in the clouds, in the sky, called Cloud City, and it is just very diverse and very unique to show this world. And on one of those planets, being Hoth, the snow planet, we see one of the most iconic moments in film history, which has been mocked throughout film history for years. And that is, of course, the Walker assault, the scene where we have these massive walking space camels, to quote Family Guy there, and we get to see how the rebels are going to take down these massive, monstrous, basically tanks with legs. And the way they do it is actually a lot more simple than you think, and it has been mocked for so many years, including recently in Captain America: Civil War. It's safe to say that the reveals that occurred in this film blew the minds of audiences all around the world. Especially the one in particular, you know what I'm talking about, where you find out that Darth Vader is actually the father of Luke Skywalker. You find out that Luke's father never died, and he actually turned to the dark side and became the menace known as Darth Vader, who we were so excited about to see. And this reveal was not only mind-blowing, but incredibly emotional, and you can really see Mark Hamill really pull it off in that one scene as Luke. This really added some history to Darth Vader as a character. We knew that he was the apprentice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but we didn't know that he was actually still alive, and that apprentice that Obi-Wan was talking about is actually Luke's father and actually Darth Vader. And it really added some depth and history to that character, and really, having that familial tie to Luke Skywalker, our main protagonist, our main hero, really added a sense of family and a sense of betrayal. I would also like to mention the scene that takes place on the planet of Dagobah, which is basically a swamp planet. This is where Luke goes to train as a Jedi. This planet was so cool, really creepy, and really atmospheric, and the way that some of these scenes take place, like the way Luke is trying to bring up an X-Wing out of the water, the way he's just there with R2-D2, and also the scene where you have the Force version of Darth Vader show up, was a very cool, intense scene, which actually had a deeper meaning than people first thought. Also, this scene on Dagobah allowed us to be introduced to one of the most iconic characters in film history. I know I say that iconic line a lot in these Star Wars reviews, but this is Star Wars after all. But on Dagobah, we get introduced to the Master Jedi known as Yoda, and Yoda is obviously one of the most popular, most well-known, most iconic Star Wars characters of all time, and he was such a funny character, and nobody expected him to be this Master Jedi. Everyone thinks he's a bit of a weirdo, but then you find out he is the Jedi who they were talking about on Dagobah. Overall, The Empire Strikes Back is an incredibly special film. Star Wars is my favourite film franchise of all time, and I would say that The Empire Strikes Back is not only my favourite, but the best Star Wars film in the entire saga. So when people say to me, what is your favourite film of all time, I tend to point towards The Empire Strikes Back. This film was so amazing, so incredible, and defined cinema, and took Star Wars to a completely new level that people and audiences did not expect. I'm going to give The Empire Strikes Back an A+.